Katie Walters, Executive Director of Leadership Kitsap. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, it's my privilege to welcome you to Hindsight 2020, our Leadership Lessons Learned networking webinar. First, I want to thank our Leadership Kitsap executive sponsors, Kitsap Community Foundation, the Point Casino and Hotel, and Port Madison Enterprises. And thank you especially to today's virtual venue sponsors, Kitsap Regional Library Foundation and Town and Country Markets. It has been a year. Can you believe it's just a year since all of our worlds turned upside down in response to the pandemic? We finished our Leadership Kitsap class of 2020 online and made the difficult decision to pause our class of 2021 leadership program. Instead, we decided to focus our experience and resources to develop training opportunities such as this to bring community leaders together in new ways to support leadership development and connections during these complex times. It is important that we take this moment to assess what we have learned in the past year, how we innovated, reimagined, and persevered. What leadership lessons were learned, and what are we going to hold on to as we move into 2021? We have a wonderful panel discussion planned for you today, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to today's moderator, Jennifer Yeaman. Jennifer is a certified diversity and process improvement professional with Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, a Leadership Kitsap board member, and our curriculum chair. And she's played a huge role in us reimagining programming this year. So now let me turn our program over to Jennifer. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Katie. As a community member of Kitsap County, I am honored to lead this panel discussion today and be in the position of looking back, assessing lessons learned, and moving forward to build a stronger community. As a federal employee supporting the Navy's mission, I was part of an essential workforce, continuing to work throughout the year with my own lens of the year 2020. Today, I look forward to learning the perspective of our panelists who represent a diversity of industries. Hindsight 2020 attendees, it is an honor to present today's panelists. Clif McKenzie. Clif McKenzie is the CEO of Watson Furniture Group. Clif was raised in Bremerton and graduated with a degree in business from the University of Washington. Watson is committed to soulful design that is guided first by the functional needs of their clients, design that is executed respectfully, uses honest materials, and delivers deeply satisfying quality. In a year where we've had to completely rethink office design, we look forward to hearing from Clif. Dr. Gibb Morrow. Dr. Gibb Morrow is Kitsap County's top health officer. He succeeded Dr. Susan Turner, who retired at the end of July. Dr. Morrow was previously the Deputy Health Director for the Whatcom County Health Department. Dr. Morrow is a graduate of Williams College with a degree in English, Duke University School of Medicine with internal medicine training, and holds a Master's of Public Health from the University of Washington School of Medicine. Dr. Morrow helps lead Kitsap County's pandemic response. What a time to start a new job in the middle of a crisis. Thank you for your service. Kristen Tolleson is the Education and Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Development Director for Bainbridge Island Museum of Art. Kristin is an artist and an educator. Her art focuses on sculpture, public art, environmental installation, and jewelry. Kristin holds a Master's of Fine Arts in Metalsmithing from Cranbrook Academy of Art and a Bachelor's in Art, History, and Sociology, Anthropology from Carleton College. Closed most of the year due to the pandemic, the Bainbridge Island Museum of Art was one of the first cultural organizations to take their educational program online, offering artist talks, art in action workshops, and a very active social media presence. And last, Bill Weimer. Bill Weimer is the CEO of Town and Country Markets. Bill began in the grocery industry during high school, working for a small independent food store. He attended Michigan State University, graduating with a bachelor's degree in food systems, marketing, and management. Town and Country Markets, known in Kitsap for Central Market in Paulsbo and Town and Country Market on Bainbridge Island, is a regionally, locally owned and operated independent retail grocery company that began in 1957. Few industries have been more impacted from the coronavirus than grocery stores. Welcome, panelists. To the audience, a reminder, if you have questions during the presentation, please feel free to add them to the Q&A tab. There will be a short Q&A period at the end of the presentation. Let's begin. Panelists, I invite you to turn your cameras on if you haven't done so already, and I'll begin with questions. Awesome. Panelists, what leadership lessons did your organization learn in 2020? And follow-up will be, what will you be taking with you into 2021? And looking at Clif McKenzie, is it okay if we hear from you first?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
So we're in office furniture, and one can only imagine that maybe we've been impacted by this whole thing, right? So our revenues are probably off by 40%, maybe 50%. It's been fairly significant. But the thing is, this is just, at some level, it's just another recession, right? You can tell by the snow on the roof here with me. I've been doing this for a while. The first time was back in '94 when I came perilously close to running our company out of business, primarily because of a bunch of bad decisions I had made. But the decisions that were guided then, that got me through that, got this company through that, are the same decisions we go through today, right? And the first and foremost, balance sheet is everything. We can talk all we want about how you generate more revenues and all that, but I'm here to tell you the first thing, your balance sheet is everything. You've got to be prepared for whether it's a pandemic or just another recession. They're all the same, right? Your revenues are going to get impacted. You better figure out how to deal with that whole thing. So while we think about what, in our case, the whole deal has been that everybody out there right now is thinking one thing, which is, God, did you think about getting into the home office, right? I mean, because all of our pandemic advice has been pivot, go someplace else, do this, do that, right? Get into the home office. I'm here to tell you, at some level, if you have the balance sheet you have, you don't have to screw around with, frankly, a bunch of harebrained ideas. We can't go into the home office, right? You think about the distribution impact that it would have. You think about what everybody thinks about in the home office, which is, I need a low-priced desk, right? We don't sell low-priced desks. We can't have a low-priced desk and pay high-priced wages. All that stuff just doesn't work. We have to create value and not commodities. So the reality of it is, having a healthy balance sheet means you have the luxury of knowing that your job is simple. We're going to weather the storm. Whatever that storm is, we're going to weather it. Our balance sheet will get us through that whole thing. Second thing we learned at that point in time is have a healthy banking relationship, but don't need it, right? The old deal about bankers is that they're anxious to loan you money when you don't need it, right? And maybe struggle a little bit when you do need it. The reality of it is, maintain a healthy banking relationship. Those relationships certainly get you through things like payroll protection programs and all that kind of stuff that needs that type of assistance. You got to prepare for the worst as well. Early on in the thing, one of the very first things that I did is took a look around and said, you know what, we have a strong balance sheet. I don't want to adjust wages. I don't want to go through the same thing that everybody did in my industry. First thing that happens is everybody's wages get cut 20 or 25%, all that stuff. We managed through the whole thing without any adjustments at all. But you got to prepare in case you're going to have that conversation. Will you need that in the future? You don't know how deep and long these things will be. first thing I did is cut my wage, right? Cut your wage, cut it to where, have a strong personal balance sheet as well, so you can cut your wage. And so that if you have to have the hard conversations going forward with other people, you can start with you're there first, right? And you're their hardest and you're their deepest. So absolutely get prepared should the worst occur. The next thing you need to do is no whining, right? You can't complain, right? We're in office furniture. We complain about that all we want. Doesn't freaking matter. We're in office furniture, man. At some level, our company doesn't need to listen to me talk about how bad it is. They need to know that we are confident that we'll weather the storm. They need to know what our strategy is going forward. Obviously we're like every other company, man. We've zoomed ourselves to death. But be very purposeful in those Zoom meetings. They don't all need to be just fillers. At some point in time, tell them why you're optimistic. I'm an optimistic son of a gun to believe with that to begin with, but communicate that optimism all the way through the whole thing, and tell them that one thing that you're going to do is keep your foot on the accelerator. Don't ever lift your foot up. That whole deal. This for us, what a wonderful time. I mean, how many of us, all of us, right? We always complain there's not enough time to do what we need to do. God would like to get better, but there's just not enough time. Would like to work on this, but there's just not enough time. I'm here to tell you, when your revenues are down 40 and 50%, you have enough time, right? So take that time and sharpen the saws, right? This has been an incredible year for us, right? All the other stuff aside, I understand the impact this pandemic has had on people, but all that stuff aside, and knowing that that's there, this has been an incredibly powerful year for us. We have gotten better. We're a closer company now than we've ever been. All those things that we didn't have time to fix, we got fixed. All those at that time, we've got all these communications that we didn't have time to have with people. We have them, right? It's been one of the better times of the 30 years I've been managing this company. I'm ready for it to end, right? We're all ready for it to end. It'd be kind of cool if people started going back to the office, right? I wouldn't mind that at all. But when they do, we're flat out ready, right? We're flat out ready for it with some incredible products, some incredible stories, and a team that's better now than they've ever been.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I love the themes of preparing for the worst, facing reality, being purposeful, and last, gratitude. Being thankful for that extra time for reflection, and how do we invest that into our businesses. Thank you very much for showing those leadership themes. So we heard from business. How about let's hear from the public sector? Dr. Morrow, can I ask you, what leadership lessons did your organization learn in 2020? And a follow-up, what will you be taking with you into 2021?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I started as the health officer here in Kitsap the last week in July, and at that point, what we were seeing, at least what I was seeing and acutely aware of, were health officers and health directors who were kind of leaving the field in droves, who were kind of burned out, who were politically challenged, who were really kind of incredibly put into, very difficult, challenging situations that I think were incredibly complex and difficult to manage. And not only was I new to Kitsap County, but I was also brand new to the job and new to the career as well. So I had started my career as a general internist, and I had helped build up and build a multi-specialty clinic, which we wound up about 10 years ago selling to the hospital, which was the economic norm. And then, I worked in that capacity for a number of years, and probably 4 or 5 years ago, decided that I really wanted to transition into something new, and had my eye on public health and on health officer type leadership roles. So I went and got a master's in public health, which I actually finished just a year before I took this position. And I like to tell people that I did that because I knew we were about to enter a global pandemic, but that's actually not entirely true. When I arrived in Kitsap, this is a county that had been really relatively spared the early parts of the pandemic. I think there are some geographic reasons for that. But as I came into town on July 27th for my first week of overlap with my predecessor, Susan Turner, the case counts were starting to go up. I was concerned. I thought the first big challenge was going to be, the schools issue. Do we reopen schools? I didn't want to, I figured I could make it through the first week or so without getting my tires slashed or any death threats. But my first day in the office, I was presented with a letter that had been written by Susan and our administrator, Keith Grellner, that they wanted me to sign on to, basically saying that we didn't want schools to open. And, I kind of pushed for a reconfiguration of that a little bit. Can't we say that we support the superintendent's decision to follow the guidelines and go slow in terms of school reopenings? And it was only a week later that we started to see an outbreak of cases over at St. Michael's Medical Center, which was, perhaps in some ways what we all needed to wake up to the reality that we had a pandemic that had encroached on our shores here locally. And, from my perspective, being brand new to the community and to the health district, this was a complex navigational challenge. And what I learned and what I think the organization as a whole learned, for me, it was all about depending on people who are career professionals within this organization, who have the ties and the connections and the experience. I really was highly dependent on, having my staff work closely with me to advise me in terms of how to manage not only the external relations, but, for me, a big part of it was working with the internal teams and really being able to understand their capabilities. I think that at the end of the day, that the skills that served me best were really active listening. I mean, I spent the first month on the job really trying to sew my lips shut and just absolutely actively and attentively listen and make sure I fully understood all the different parameters, all the different functions, all the different job descriptions, while at the same time trying to formulate my own diagnosis, not only of what was working well internally within the organization, but, how to, integrate that with events throughout the community. I think that humility works well in leadership positions, and, acknowledging that none of us know it all. Certainly I didn't at that point, and I don't now, and I don't ever expect to. What have I learned? This year is the more pertinent question probably is, what haven't I learned? It's just been a tremendous, tremendous learning experience for me, which is, as a mid-late career professional, I couldn't be more grateful for the opportunity to learn. And I think, in terms of bringing out the best in terms of the team and in building relations with external, stakeholders, if you will, or other, incredibly valuable connections, whether that's the Board of Health, which hires me and has, the capability to fire me if I'm not, performing for them, as well as all the numerous nonprofit groups throughout the county, the healthcare community. I think that just, respect, genuine respect and appreciation go a tremendous way. So that's, both internal to within an organization and outside of a organization as well. I'm a big believer in what's called distributed leadership. And that means that, really kind of empowering the people that you work with, letting them run with things, being supportive when they are showing initiative and independence, but at the same time, really trying to be inclusive of different people. I think you get better bang for your buck within an organization like this when you're really sharing information actively, including people in decisions. And I think the best decisions get made when you really do take in and factor in all the different perspectives. And finally, flexibility. One of the concerns that I had when I showed up was that, it was very much full court press, business as usual here in the health district. And, I had just seen, and we identified a major outbreak in a hospital. I didn't want to be the first health district or health department in the state of Washington to close because of an outbreak. So, the health district had been reluctant to, pursue telecommuting previously, but it was apparent that if we were going to do this safely and practice what we were preaching and, advocating for, that we're going to need to move into that mode. And so, we basically, promoted that and made that happen within the health district. And I think that kind of flexibility really has been valuable. I think that the other thing that I've seen that's been really exciting within the health district is, sort of cross-training and cross-function work and, moving people into new positions as we start new initiatives. And that has really, I think, just been a wonderful improvement in the overall culture of the organization, because we've all been working closely with each other. We've all been meeting each other. We're developing kind of really strong new relationships. I think those are the kind of things that we'll be carrying forward into 2021. I hope they are. For me, it's been just a really exciting and incredibly gratifying experience to be part of this. And I just, on a daily basis, feel fortunate to have sort of made a shift and jumped into a whole new career, and couldn't be having sort of a more interesting time of doing it. And again, just being open to new experiences like this. I think Yolanda Fong, who really helped me get through that outbreak at St. Michael's, was the one that sort of, I think you asked to be part of this. She sort of dished it over to me, and I am just continually grateful for all these kinds of new opportunities. So thanks for having me, and I look forward to hearing from the rest of the panelists.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think too, the theme that I've heard from you and Clif McKenzie so far, relationships. I've heard a lot about relationships. Thinking about, for my efforts, helping to stop the spread. I quarantined with my family inside my home, which really tested my relationships. I think what it showed me is how important culture and the arts were to me, and my Netflix account would agree. So I'd like to move to Kristen Tolleson. Same question. What leadership lessons did your organization learn in 2020?
Thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate the business acumen that has been mentioned in both the previous presenters. I'm going to take a slightly different tack, because although what I believe that I'm practicing has deep roots in business kind of common sense, really what we were doing at the museum had to do with thinking big, thinking small, and then communicating. That's definitely a theme: relationships and communication. In terms of thinking big and thinking small, when the museum closed, which, as Katie mentioned, was almost a year to the day, what I thought I would be doing is writing grants to help keep everything afloat. I really just thought that I was going to be doing more of the thing that we had already been doing, which is looking for funds in kind of a conventional way. And it became very clear very quickly that our job was not necessarily just to keep funding ourselves, but it was to keep engaging with our constituents, our community. And so one of the ways that we thought big was we thought, how can we bring this to, it was a novel idea a year ago to bring things online. It was still very, it wasn't really commonplace. And so the way we thought small was by thinking scrappy. And each one of the people in my department, who was actually, there were 2 of us at the time, sat in front of our computers and started creating content that would have been done by teaching artists in the physical museum space. We filmed ourselves, we wrote our own scripts, we filmed ourselves, edited ourselves, and just stopped worrying about the level of professionalism and really started thinking about what we were trying to do. And as these videos started going online and the responses came in from people all around the country, I had friends in New Orleans send me photos of their kids working on these projects. We realized that we were not only keeping our community in contact, but we were growing our community. And so the fact is that we have leadership who encouraged us both to feel safe in our jobs. I mean, I want to really state how amazing it is that we had no full-time layoffs at the Bainbridge Island Museum of Art during this past year, and that everybody felt secure in taking these risks, taking leaps, being bold. And so bringing all of that energy to do what we knew that we could do and thinking of new ways to communicate was one of the big movements that we made. We also came to realize that it wasn't really only about the pandemic for us ever. It was right around that time we had embarked on a new focused initiative that stemmed from our strategic plan on thoroughly integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion practice into the museum at all levels. And by that, I mean in terms of hiring, in terms of our board composition, in the ways that we do community engagement. And so that piece combined, I mean, we realize that everything is connected. It's not just about making cute videos and getting people signed on, but it's really about moving your organization into a world that is rapidly changing and that can't go backward. I mean, we need to live into our values in the way that we speak about them and the way that we demonstrate them. So for us, this connectedness and the kind of humbleness that comes with exactly what both Clif and Gib have mentioned, that you have a reckoning during this time, and the reckoning brings you to the core values of what your organization is doing and how you play into that. So for me, that words and actions interrelationship is something that is being moved forward. We probably, I mean, the museum is open again. Fortunately, we are hoping that there will be a day when we can have programs that are in person and we can gather again. We'll continue to bring the digital pieces into our future. I mean, that's something that it's a skill and a practice that will never go away completely. And this kind of idea that that we as an organization are sitting in a privileged position, and that the way that we can help make change is by living into those values. So I think for me, it's I need a reason to get up every morning. Right now, and really fortunately, I'm taking care of my parents' dog, which is, as somebody who lives alone, the dog is a reason for me to get up in the morning. But more than that, with work, I have come to really realize the potential impact that a cultural organization can make. And I don't say that lightly, because as an artist and an educator, of course, you would assume that I believed in the power of art to change lives. But sometimes I think about, people getting fed and people having, I won't say sometimes, I think about that all the time. And I wonder about my worth as somebody who's involved in arts and culture. But what this time has proven to me is that our ability to speak forward about really important issues and to model and engage and to be a community connector, those are all reasons to get up in the morning and to continue doing the work. So yeah, thank you, Jennifer.
And thank you. I loved your words, reason, purpose, feeding your soul. I think all those things, culture, arts, I think all those things are amazing. And I really like the words that you use for those. So thank you. All right. Last but not least, Bill Weimer, CEO of Town and Country Markets. Thank you. That's all I have to say. You get me fed.
Well, thank you. Gosh, there's been so much wisdom shared already. I hope I can add to it. Our experience was quite a bit different, and I really appreciated what Clif had to say about the balance sheet, because your ability to sustain your business is totally dependent on that, your balance sheet and your business model. And honestly, when this thing first started, we had no idea what was going to happen. As a matter of fact, I called an emergency board meeting to discuss worst case scenarios and said, hey, we may spend some money on the balance sheet. We had no idea, but and things moved so quickly. And by the way, I was on a panel with some other businesses just recently, and there were a few restaurants on that. And, we were so blessed because we were essential business, and everything started coming our way fast. And, there were so many folks out there struggling, so many businesses even lost. And for us to kind of count our blessings for what happened with us. But it was incredibly chaotic, to be honest. I was in bed recovering from hip replacement surgery the last week of February. And I was trying to stay on top of stuff at work, and I was on my laptop, and a news story came across about a high school student at Jackson High School. We have 6 stores, by the way, and about 1,200 employees. And a student at Jackson High School up near our Mill Creek store tested positive for the virus. And the school district decided to close the school. And it was like, what? And so I got on the phone with some of our key executives. I said, we need to get together right now and talk about this. I said, we have no idea what role we're playing in potentially spreading this virus. And with the kind of traffic that we have, and just to put that in context, our weekly transaction count is about 130,000 pre-COVID. 130,000 transactions. That represents a customer coming into our store, grabbing a cart, and then going about their business, touching counters, going to the self-serve salad bars. And as far as we knew, every touch could be a chance to spread the virus. And so we immediately started these daily conference calls, Zoom calls with our stores, all of our stores, our 6 market directors and their assistants, our product directors who are in charge of getting us product, and other key folks in the organization, our health and safety person, Dr. Morrow, who you may know, Mike Latham. We had all these folks together every morning and started talking about, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And, it's simple things like, we got to sanitize every grocery cart. We got to sanitize everything that a customer touches. And so we started developing these protocols. And it was like the list just went on and on and on of things that we felt we had to do. And, we've got amazing people, by the way. And, when you ask the secret sauce of Town and Country, it's our people. And everybody was just rising up and contributing. And what was really interesting about it was the collective intelligence of this group of people, sometimes 30 people on a call, that would begin to develop our protocol to ensure, number one, that our employees are safe, Number two, that our customers say. Those were the top two things that we said we've got to provide for. And it was very chaotic because initially, you might remember the initial days of the as it kind of started to expand, people started panic buying. And we see this when a snowstorm's in the forecast or there's some event coming. People come and they buy 8 loaves of bread and all the milk they can fit in their cart and toilet paper and paper towels. And anyway, so this panic buying started. And we had some days that our business more than doubled for the day. And, these are big volume stores with, we have 200, like our Paulsbo store has 250 employees. And, you get everybody kind of lined up to do that. And all of a sudden the volume goes up by that much. I mean, it's a blessing when you think from a revenue standpoint. But trying to serve people and keep people safe, it was incredibly chaotic. And then supply issues started to happen really significantly, having enough product. We work with big suppliers, but everybody was starting to buy, at least on the West Coast. Was the other thing. We kind of got into it a little bit earlier than the rest of the country. And so this panic buying started, and we were able to go out and start to secure product. But after about 2 weeks, it started to spread across the country. And the big operators, the really big operators that control everything, got in there. And I mean, we literally had whole truckloads of paper towels and toilet paper that were scooped out from under us by bigger companies. And so we had to really scramble. And so every day we're talking about all these activities and trying to refine what we're going to do and develop our guidelines. And like I say, the collective intelligence of this group. For 60 days in a row, we did this. 60 days in a row. And then we started to be able to slow down a little bit, but not too much. But I will tell you that real-time communication was an eye-opener because, sometimes we get together with our folks once a month, but to do it every day and talk about how you can improve things, it really played a huge role in our ability to navigate this thing. After about 2 weeks, and I think Kristin mentioned this about having meaning and purpose, about 2 weeks of this chaos, we started to get clarity around what's really at stake here are people's lives. And it's about saving people's lives. It's about serving the community, but it's about saving people's lives. And once we got to that point, that kind of became the North Star for us in terms of our decision making and activities and prioritization. And again, our team really embraced that, and it guided us tremendously. We started up an online shopping service in 8 weeks. 8 weeks. Now, this is a project that typically we would work on for 3 years. I mean, sometimes it's not a country we don't do things very fast, but we needed an online alternative. We had people asking for it. We've been exploring it, but we really hadn't. We've been slow to move on it. So in 8 weeks, we put up our own system with the help of a platform, a software platform. And it was a real eye-opener because when you get a group of people focused and say the only thing that you're working on is this, it's amazing what you can accomplish. So that focus was another real takeaway, and kind of letting go of some of those non-essential things that we think we have to do. De-escalation training. We put all of our leadership through de-escalation training. You cannot believe the conflicts that showed up. People that didn't want to wear masks. People that were mad at people that were not wearing masks. We organized some de-escalation training for all of our store leadership because we unfortunately became the mask police. And there was a lot of, I'm going to call it deception when we had this kind of medical exemption idea, because a lot of people were taking advantage of that. Now that's a bit of a judgment on my part, but unfortunately it created conflicts in the store. And so we were trying to keep that, under control, to keep our people safe. And so that was an interesting variable in this whole thing. And employee fear, I've been doing this for 50 years, and I don't think I've ever been through a year like this. I'm sure most of you haven't. And the probably the thing that troubled me most was the fear our employees had about working. Are they going to get the virus? And we really liberalized all of our guidelines, and we didn't want anybody working if they didn't want to work. And so getting them leave and vacation pay or whatever they needed, we just lifted up all those guidelines so people could make their own decisions. And at one point, we had about 25% of our people on leave, and your volumes are surging. How do you operate stores like that? Well, you bring in temporary folks, which we did. And of course, there were a lot of folks out there, a lot of restaurant people, good people, by the way, that we were able to bring in and assist us. And so, you know, we found a way to do it. But I have to say the employee fear thing was really troubling. And we had one final story, and then I'll summarize with kind of my 3 takeaways for the year ahead. In September, we were, you know, allowing people to come in the store without masks if they had a medical exemption. Of course, we couldn't make them prove it. And it was creating a lot of challenges for us. We had just got our online system up and operating. And so we decided that we were now going to take a hard line and that no one would be allowed in the store without a mask. Our alternative is they can buy through our online service. We'll do whatever we can to get them groceries. But we felt that it was time to really firm this up. And actually, some of that was feedback from our employees saying, hey, what's the integrity here? You talk about employee safety, and yet we're letting people in the store without masks. And so we decided to firm it up. And of course, that created the ultimate conflicts right at the front door when we started to do that. And it probably peaked. It did peak at our Mill Creek store because we started to get targeted by a group called the Free Breathers. They're an organization that didn't believe in the virus. They didn't believe in wearing masks, and they felt they could shop our store without masks. And so they started to protest us. This was right around Thanksgiving. And for 3 weekends, they came in, and it got pretty ugly. I mean, we had to, the first weekend, we had to close the store for 2 hours because some of them got in the store. We didn't think it was safe, so we closed the store down until we could ensure the safety and reopen it. The second week, they came in bigger numbers, and it got more confrontational. The police, the Mill Creek police, didn't know what to do really because the constitutional rights to protest, and so there was a lot of just different opinions about what we could do and not do. And finally, by the third week, we had got some legal work done and got some injunctions, so we could actually file injunctions to keep them off the property. But the third week, they brought the Proud Boys with them. So there were 50 Proud Boys in our Mill Creek parking lot with the Free Breathers and some other folks that showed up. And anyway, we got through it safely, but it was just, what's next? And that's the kind of things that we went through.
I want to thank everybody for your insights, your time, for honoring us with your presence and sharing your wisdom. And I look forward to having people being able to interact with you one-on-one-ish during the table topic portion of our agenda. Attendees, we're going to transition to table talk. At this time, we're going to invite you to rejoin your tables. Our speakers have a special little microphone icon, so that'll help you know that they are one of our panelists. You're going to be free to move around the room to share your thoughts and responses to the panelists and ask them more questions and kind of get the one-on-one. As you return to the tables, I also offer the same questions for your responses. What leadership lessons did your organization learn in 2020? And what will you be taking with you into 2021? We'll come back together at 12:55 to close the program. And thank you again to our panelists. With a little virtual magic, I'm going to send you back to the floor. Thank you.